Rosita Castrejon Tijerina, class of '89, and Director of Alumni Engagement for Incarnate Word High School. And today we have just the delightful pleasure to be with Diana Barrios Trevino at Los Barrios restaurant. Diana is a graduate of Incarnate Word High School, class of 1981, who is going to not only tell us about a love story of her family, but give you an opportunity to learn a recipe from her family to your family. Before we get started, as we always do at Incarnate Word High School, I'm going to turn it over to Rosie, who is going to give us a prayer and lead us in God's holiness for today as we ask for God's favor on this. You will hear Diana's story of Con el favor de Dios.
Good afternoon, Shamrocks. I'm Rosie Cortez. I'm the Director of Mission and Ministry for Incarnate Word High School. So before we begin, I want you to settle your hearts. Prepare yourself for the word of the Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, come, Holy Spirit, come. Heavenly Father, we ask that you listen to our hearts and our words. Bless everyone that is here with us today, and bless Diana as she speaks to our family today. We ask that her words be your words, her actions be your actions, her heart be your heart, and in all that she do, that she is modeling the faith that you have set before us. Bless her, O Lord, because she is here with us today, and she lives your word. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Diana, let's get started.
Let's
Thank you
do
for being
this.
here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm going to remove my mask, and say, hello, Shamrocks. How are you? I am so delighted to be here with y'all today. I am a graduate of the Centennial class at Incarnate Word High School. Yes, we were the 100th graduating class of Incarnate Word. That was the class of 1981. And from there, I went on to go to St. Mary's University. And, you know, it was about that time, I would think I was a sophomore in high school, that my mother opened Los Barrios. Now, we're located here on Blanco Road today, but you know, back in 79 when she opened, in 1979, we were located on Avenue B and Jones, very close to the Pearl, the Museum of Art, right over there. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I'm going to tell you a fun story, a loving story, and a story with hope about what my mom did and how she did it and why she did it, that she ended up in the restaurant business. In 1979, my mom started Los Barrios restaurant with $3,000 in an old boat garage. It wasn't pretty, but like my brother Louis says, when the food is good, there's forgiveness and everything else. So what does that mean? It means that people were very forgiving that the place wasn't fancy because the food was so good and they were so excited to come and eat. And you know, 3 weeks after she opened, it was standing room only. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I'm going to backtrack as to how my mother knew she wanted to be in the restaurant business. So my mother was Viola Barrios. She and my father, Jose, met in the mid-50s at La Prensa, which was back then a daily Spanish newspaper. My father was the sports editor. My mother was the secretary. They met there. They fell in love. They got married. And they had 3 beautiful children. I'm the baby. You know, that makes me a little bit more special, right? I think. I don't know. Maybe my brother and sister won't agree with you. I have an older sister, Teresa, who is a graduate of the class of 1977. And I have an older brother, Louis. He graduated in 78, but not from Incarnate Word because they don't have boys there. However, he's very proud to tell you that he did go to Incarnate Word. He actually went to Incarnate Word back in summer school when they would let the boys come. So you could take summer school classes to get advanced. Well, Louis enrolled at Incarnate Word, and I can't remember what he took. I don't remember the subject, but he did go to Incarnate Word, so he thinks he's a mighty shamrock too. Anyway, so my parents had the 3 of us children, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And in 1972, my mother approached my father, who by then was not with La Prensa, he was in Spanish radio, overseeing and managing a company, a radio station. So my mother asked my father to buy her a small restaurant. And because he loved her so much, he did. He said, you know, your food is great, your cooking is great, but what do you know about the restaurant business? And she said, I don't know, but I feel it in my heart that this is something I really, really want to do. All of her family, they were merchants and entrepreneurs and business people. And my mother was from Bustamante, Nuevo León, Mexico, which is close to Monterrey. And so when my parents had us children, they chose to raise us bilingually and biculturally. And for that, I am eternally grateful. It's opened up many, many doors for my sister, my brother, and myself. So we only spoke Spanish at home. So my mom's English wasn't very, very good. She kind of, you know, she had a little hard time rolling the tongue or not rolling the tongue, I should say. She could roll her tongue real well because in Spanish, you do that. But in English, it's a little bit more relaxed, and she just had a hard time doing that. So we only spoke Spanish at home. And she only spoke Spanish. She spoke a little bit of English, but you know, she preferred to speak in Spanish. And so our parents raised us like that. My mother asks my father for this little restaurant in 1972, and he said, okay, I will. Because he loved her so much, he wanted to give her everything she asked him for, all of her dreams. It was something she thought she wanted to do. It wasn't, my parents didn't depend on the income from that little tiny restaurant because my father was, you know, the one that supported our family. Well, in 1972, we started. And in 1975, my father was on his way to do a live remote for the radio station he worked for, and he was involved in a car accident. He was killed in a car accident on Labor Day, Monday, September the 1st, 1975. So that was, well, you can imagine what that did to our family. I had just turned 12, my brother Louis was 15, and my sister Teresa was 16, about to turn 17. Well, that left us all on our own. So my mother kept the little restaurant that she had, trying to figure things out. And in 1977, so my father died in 75, she kept the restaurant for another 2 years. And in 1977, she decided to sell it. So she sold it to one of her employees, and she said, I need to do something where I can be home with my children. They need me. So she signed up at San Antonio College for the real estate class. She really liked real estate. Well, she was really good. I mean, she got that class down. She knew what she was doing. It was awesome. The class was given in Spanish. So when you go to become a realtor, you have to take an exam. And so when my mother went to take that exam after she finished the course, she realized that the class was only given in English and not in Spanish. You can imagine how disappointed she was because she knew she wouldn't be able to understand that English test very well. So she didn't pursue that any longer. She got cheated in 2 business ventures after my father died, and one of them was a little white, small tablecloth, South American style food restaurant. And her business partners were trying to figure a way to swindle the widow out of whatever she had. Fortunately for her, there was a little guardian angel there, the maitre d' of this fancy little restaurant, who overheard everything and came to my mother and said, you need to be careful, this is what's going on. I would hope, he said, that if somebody were doing this to my sister, my wife, my mother, that somebody would come to her aid. And he did that because he said he couldn't sleep at night, knowing what they were trying to do. So that restaurant went away. And so a couple years later, after that, in 1977, when they closed, he approached my mother about opening up a restaurant and going into this partnership together. And so they did. But my mother wasn't really willing to lose a lot of money because she'd already been cheated in 2 business ventures. So she said, okay, I'll go in on this business with you, but I'm only willing to invest $3,000. And so he invested a little, and they opened up Los Barrios on the corner of Avenue B and Jones. And like I said before, it wasn't fancy. There was no matching tables, no matching chairs, no matching plates, no matching utensils. They did it bare bones minimum. My mother, who had just finished real estate class, remember that? Well, she signed a 6-month lease. That's it. She was afraid that she didn't want to be tied down to a lease, you know, her rental agreement, in case the restaurant didn't work. She didn't want to be stuck and having to pay this for years to come. So she was very careful in what she did, as we all should be. And so They signed the lease. It was 6 months. The landlord lived next door. He sat in a rocking chair and he'd watch all of the customers coming in, because after 3 weeks open, it was standing room only. It wasn't huge, but it was standing room. People would wait at lunchtime. Now, this is a part of downtown that empties out at 5 o'clock. So at nighttime, it wasn't crazy busy, but we met some wonderful customers in the evening, and they became like family to us. Well, that landlord would watch all the people come in and out. And so here comes month 6, and it's time for my mother to renew her contract, her lease agreement. And he says, "Señora, I have to go up on the rent." She said, "Okay, how much?" And he said, "Well, it's going to go from $500 a month, which is what she was paying, to $1,500 a month." He tripled the rent. That's crazy. So my mother said, "Okay, I'm going to pay you month to month until I find somewhere else." So she paid that higher rent for 2 more months. And she sent her friends and family out looking for a piece of property that she could own, because she wanted to own her own real estate. And so if you come to Los Barrios today, here on Blanco Road, you can see the original part of the restaurant that was just what it was in 1980 when she bought the property and moved here. It was one of the very first indoor Dairy Queen restaurants in San Antonio. Yep, it was a Dairy Queen. It sure was. And if you come here, and I'm here, ask me, and I'll show you where the Dairy Queen was. We don't serve ice cream, but we serve really good enchiladas and tacos and fajitas and all kinds of yummy, yummy food. So she bought the old Dairy Queen. We moved over here. That was in 1980. In 1981, this little tiny restaurant that just started working. Everybody worked very, very hard. Well, in 1981, it's the year I graduated from high school, that summer after I graduated, it was in the Esquire magazine, top new 100 restaurants in America. You can well imagine what that did for my family's business. It just made people come out of everywhere and nowhere. I mean, people were calling from different states wanting to make reservations for a party of 80. We didn't even seat 80 people. So what we did was, my mom and our business partner, Mr. Rodriguez, expanded the restaurant. They wrapped the Dairy Queen and added more dining space and added restrooms and made it a little bit bigger and a little bit nicer. And so it turned out to be a great thing, because all of those people that we met downtown, well, you know what? They lived all around the area. And so they came here. They found us and they came here, and they would bring their families. And so I'm excited to tell you that some of those families that we met back downtown in 1979, they still come and eat here with their children, and now their grandchildren, and some even their great-grandchildren. It's amazing to see these beautiful families with the different generations coming in and celebrating the good times and sometimes the not so good times. But they're here and they know they can come here and feel like they are family, because when you come into Los Barrios, you become an extension of our family. You become our family. And that's just the way we are. That's the Viola way. That's what we say. That's the Viola way. That's how our mom taught us to be. And so after a few years, my mom and her business partner decided to part ways. So she bought him out and stayed here. That's when my brother Louis came back to run the business, because he knew she needed the help. He had graduated from St. Mary's University and gone to work for Johnson & Johnson, one of the youngest members of the team they ever hired. And the reason they hired him was because he was bilingual and he covered all of South Texas. But he was always gone, and he knew my mom needed the help. And so he came back to help her. He knew she really, really needed the help. And so he came back here right around the time I was graduating from St. Mary's. And my sister went on to become, she was in podiatry school. She's a foot doctor. She was in Chicago, so she really wasn't around that much, but she would still also come and help. So along the way, you know, my brother comes back to run the business. I'm graduating from college, and one thing leads to another. I'm still here. I never left. And I'm so glad I never left, because this has been a very rewarding and loving career. I have met so many people. We have met so many people and have had so many awesome opportunities. If you've never been, I invite you to come. You'll have a great time, I promise you, and you'll eat really, really, really well. And so when my mom bought our business partner out and my brother came back, he knew he needed to grow the business. And so he went, sold his house, moved in with my mom, went to the bank and said, I need you to lend me a bunch of money because I want to make our restaurant bigger. So he did that. And this room we're in, this is what he expanded. He expanded this room, this big dining room, new restrooms, a foyer, parking lots, and we grew and we kept growing and we kept growing. It's a lot of sacrifice involved though, definitely a lot of sacrifice. So along the way, Louis gets recognized by his entrepreneurship, by the Restaurant Association as Restaurateur of the Year, lots of different things. And I've always been just I'm here, let's do it. I'm part of the team. And that's very important to something for you to always remember, girls. Be a part of the team. There's no I in team. Be a team leader, a team member, be the helper. If you can't lead, that's okay. Be a helper. Help do the work. Help get it done. I promise you, it will benefit everybody when it's for everybody. We say for the enterprise, not for yourself. And so that's very important, a lesson that I hope that you will always take with you when you're in college and beyond, or in whatever career you choose to do. Remember that. Be for the team. So when Louis came back and was doing his stuff, a few years later, he gets approached. And it's our friend at WAI, which was back then KMOL, Bruce Cates. He says, I want you to come and cook on my early morning show, Louis. And Louis' like, oh no, that's not my thing. What time you want my little sister there? And they said, don't you think you should ask her? And he said, oh no, I'm the big brother. But he was joking because he knew that was something right up my alley. I love doing that kind of thing. And so I would get to go and cook early morning TV. It was early, like I had to be down there at 5:30 downtown, but it was so much fun. And I got to do that for every other week for about 5 years. And that really taught me a lot. I had no experience. I didn't know how to cook in 5-minute segments, but it's okay. We figured it out, we learned. So that opportunity, that sacrifice of having to get up really early and getting downtown and unloading my car in the dark and bringing everything in and doing all of this and doing this cooking segment, well, it opened up many, many, many doors for me. Because of that, I was invited to be on Good Morning America with Emeril Lagasse, and he's the guy that goes bam from the Food Network. I don't know if y'all remember him, but he's an amazing guy. He made the Food Network. The day that we did our segment from Good Morning America from the Riverwalk, that afternoon, Random House called us and said, we'd like to visit with you about maybe doing a cookbook. And here's our cookbook done by Random House. It's right here. It's a very good cookbook. In fact, if you go away to school, you should take a copy with you. I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's a really great little cookbook. And that was something that our family did not see coming. It was just a big surprise. So it took us 3 years to write our cookbook. Why? Because like any great cook in a family, nothing was measured, nothing was timed, there was no instruction. My mother's recipes were in here, and she knew how to cook. So for 3 years, we had to sit and practice these recipes and figure out, okay, whatever fits in here, because she'd say, oh, well, whatever fits in here, that's how much you're going to put in. So I'd have to measure that. We'd write it down, and we did it over and over until these recipes were correct 100%. And so they're very simple recipes, because what we do here at Los Barrios and at our other restaurants, because we now have 4, Los Barrios, La Hacienda de los Barrios, Violas Ventanas, and La Hacienda Scenic Loop. What we do here is called casero style cooking, cooking the way Mexican mothers cook in their homes on a daily basis for their families. This is good comfort food. This is the kind of food you can have for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. It's a great midnight snack too. So this is the kind of food you can eat every day, all day. And so our casero style food was very inviting to our guests. And so this is what we do. This is how we prepare it. We've had so many opportunities. Our cookbook is one. We have done lots of shows on local shows and on the Food Network. We did a throwdown with Bobby Flay with our puffy tacos. We've just had some amazing opportunities. And we continue to have them. We continue to have a lot of fun sharing with the world what San Antonio food, what San Antonio flavor is all about. You know, earlier, Lupita, when she introduced me, said something about what my mother would say, con el favor de Dios, with God's favor. Well, all those opportunities I'm talking to y'all about, every time I'd come and tell my mother, Mami, 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 quieren que salga en Good Morning America. They want me to be on Good Morning America. She would say, con el favor de Dios. Never, teaching me to never take for granted. This is what she taught us. This is the kind of, you know, she fed us daily. Yes, she fed us great food daily, but she also she fed us spiritually every single day. And that's the food that we took in. My mother started her sentences with, con el favor de Dios, with God's favor. Si Dios quiere, if God desires it. Gracias a Dios, thanks be to God. That's what we heard day in and day out. And it's something that I invite you to get into a practice of. You know, at Incarnate Word High School, we started with a prayer. At lunchtime, you pray. Before you go to bed, you pray. During the day, you pray. Don't stop. Do not stop doing that. Keep in that habit. You need that. You need to always practice that, because it's practice. It's practice. And we have to practice a lot of things. We practice volleyball, we practice basketball, we practice cheerleading, we practice experiments in a lab. Well, you need to practice doing a lot of things in your life. Even when you get to my age and beyond, you will continue to practice things every single day. Practice kindness. Our world needs kindness so much. Practice it. Be kind, be gentle, be loving, be forgiving. Yeah, we do mess up a lot of times. All of us do. There's not anybody that doesn't mess up. But understand that we all make mistakes. Be forgiving. It's so important. I guarantee you, it'll make you feel better inside. If you carry a grudge, that doesn't do you anything. It doesn't do you any good. Holding a grudge is just going to create lots of not good stuff inside of you, like a bad disease. So get rid of the grudge. You know, my mother would say these things, and, you know, I heard it over and over and over again. And until she was gone, and it wasn't even until she was gone, I was already aware of it. And until I started having my children, we have 3 boys, and they all went to Central Catholic. But when I found myself echoing what my mother would say, and you will too. Whoever that person is in your life that's giving you all of that, one day you will say, oh my gosh, I sound just like him. I sound just like her. And that's okay. Echo that and build your life around that. It's so important these days. There's so much going on in our world. Yes, you want to be a part of the world, but don't make the world your focus. Focus on your faith. Focus on your kindness, your forgiveness, your lovingness, your good qualities that you want to show the world. I guarantee you, it will bless you, and it will be something that you will know. You will know that it's God making the difference in your life. And so, you know, we've done a bunch of things all along over the years. We've gotten to do some fun TV shows and fun cooking demos and fun cooking segments. Things are a little different right now. We're in a pandemic, and so we can't necessarily do the stuff that we are used to doing. But what I have found is that a lot of people are cooking at home, and a lot of people have reached out, or I've seen them, or they've sent me a message, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's an email or whether it's a text, and they say, you know, we've been home, we've been cooking, we've been using your cookbook a whole lot. And I'm so excited because these recipes are so simple. And so the recipe we're going to do today is a simple recipe that I want you girls to take with you wherever you go, whatever you do. This is so simple. I promise you, You can't mess it up. You cannot mess it up. The only way that I guess you could mess up is if you added too much salt, but that's why you're tasting all the way along. Always have I don't have any right here, but I always usually at home have a bunch of spoons right there next to the stove, and I'll taste it and put and then I'll taste if it needs seasoning. I'll put that spoon aside in the sink, grab another one, taste it. And that's how we figure out what we're doing, if it's right, if it's wrong, if it's too spicy, if it's too salty, if it needs more salt. Those are ingredients that we're going to add. Just like these ingredients that I was telling you about, that you need to keep and continue to practice and add in your life. The kindness, being humble, being forgiving, being loving, all of that. You have to practice that every single day. And so like that, when you start cooking, the more you cook, the better you get. The more you cook, the better you get, the more you realize you get this confidence in you. And that's great. What you do with that confidence is you might change this recipe that I'm giving you and create your own version with your own ingredients. And that's great too. So I always tell everybody, we have a recipe book. There are a bunch of recipes. There are millions of cookbooks out there. There are millions of recipes out there. If you're going to cook from a recipe that you've never cooked from before, I encourage you to read it. Read it a couple of times. Get yourself familiar with what you're going to be doing. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to line up all your ingredients. I have all of mine lined up right here, okay? And that way you're not running back and forth going, oh gosh, my whatever is cooking and it's going to burn, but I don't know where this, spice is or this herb or whatever it is that you need to add to it. So line everything up and have it there in front of you. That's how they do it at the Food Network. Of course, there's 200 people behind the scenes doing that for these people, but it's okay. Get yourself organized. Every Thanksgiving, I start cooking here in the back, getting prepped for the next day, for Thanksgiving Day. I'm doing this the day before. And for many years, there's a recipe that I make every single year. And I would I set up in the back kitchen once the guys are gone and I start doing everything. Deanna, you have a phone call, so I go to the phone. Or Deanna, somebody wants to say hi. So I come out, then I come back and I'm like, where was I? Did I already add the sugar? Did I add the cinnamon? And so did I put the butter in? I can't tell you how many times I did that. I messed up by doubling or leaving something out because I wasn't organized. I started organizing myself and oh my goodness, it makes the biggest difference in the world. I've been married for 32 years, just last week, to my husband, Roland. And, you can ask him all of my goofy mess-ups in the kitchen because there were goofy mess-ups, and there still are sometimes, but that's okay. That's okay. Practice makes better. And I learned that organizing myself was the key ingredient to being successful in the kitchen. And you know what? That's with anything in your life. Organize yourself. Have everything ready. Not to worry. You will have success when you do what you're making. Okay, so I'm going to start with our recipe. What I'm going to make today is a salsa ranchera. You can make this mild or you can make it spicy. It's not hard. It's very simple. There are various variations of this. There are some versions where you boil your tomatoes and until they start blistering and you can see that the skin is starting to peel. Then you remove them, you take them out of the water, you remove the skins, you mash them up. That's one way. We're going to do a simplified version, okay? What I'm going to do is I've got my tomatoes here. I've already cut them up, washed them and cut them up. They're pretty red, ripe tomatoes. Red, ripe red tomatoes, however, they're not always pretty red ones. Sometimes it's just not the season for them. But that's okay. I'm going to give you a tip. Oh, you know what? I've got to put my gloves on because this is going to make it much easier for me with my gloves. All right, girls. And I encourage you to use gloves when you're cooking at home, especially if you're dealing with peppers. And we have some peppers here because we can make this recipe mild or we can make it spicy. Today we're gonna make it spicy. Okay, so I've got my tomatoes and I'm just gonna take all my tomatoes and I'm going to add them to my blender, okay? And you know, sometimes I want the juice. Sometimes we mess up. Like right now, I'm supposed to have a pitcher of water. I forgot it. Fortunately, I have a glass of water right here, so I'm gonna add some of this water. I haven't had any to drink, so I'm just gonna add some water because I need my blender to, I need it to be a little moist so that it will blend better. Okay, so if you've got something hot in your blender, let's say we boil the tomatoes. You want to be very careful when you take hot tomatoes and you put them in your blender because this pressure is going to build up, okay? You want to be very, very careful. I always put a dish towel and I keep pressure because if you were to put your hot tomatoes and let it go and you turn it on, it could really just kind of take off and not explode, but you know, it can go everywhere. So we're gonna do this real slowly because I wanna make sure that it blends nicely. Okay, so here we go. They're blending. Thank you for the water, Lupita. Great assistant. Okay, there we go. Now I want this nice and smooth. I want it blended very smoothly. I'm going to turn on my stove because I need to heat some hot oil up. Okay, there we go. This is nice and smooth. Look at this gorgeous, rich color. How beautiful is that? I love this color. I love when I make Mexican rice, when the tomatoes are this color, it just makes your rice even more beautiful. But that's another recipe for another day. But what happens if your tomatoes are not this ripe and red? So you can take a little tomato sauce, they sell it in a little can, you can add a tablespoon or two, and it will give it the color that you need. Now some people say, well, can you use canned tomatoes? Believe it or not, yes, you can use canned tomatoes if you'd like. So there are different chefs that will say, I only use canned tomatoes because they're consistent. I can guarantee that my flavor is gonna remain the same all of the time. So that's cool too. Okay, so what I've got here is I'm gonna add a little bit of oil and, excuse me, I am using an induction range. And what I like about this, it's very even cooking. I like it. It's, you know, if you're cooking on an electric stove or on a gas stove, it's not always going to be that even. But this is the one that gets hot really quick. I mean, it'll boil water in like a minute and a half. So that's what I like about this. So here we are. We've got our oil going. We've got it. We're going to cook on medium heat. We want medium heat. You don't want to start too high because when you go high, you burn. And that's what another lesson in life. You don't want to blow up and get mad about things. You want to be mild. You want to be medium. You want to listen and think and talk things over, okay? So here we go. We've got our onion that's slivered. Now, do you have to sliver it? You can slice it, dice it, chop it, however you want. Okay, so I'm gonna add my onion, and I'm gonna add some bell pepper, okay? And I am going to just toss it around. What do we want to accomplish here with the onion and the bell pepper? We want it to get translucent in color. We want it to sweat out. We want that onion to get nice and soft, as well as the bell pepper. This can take up to 4 or 5 minutes when you're doing this at home over medium heat. And so we're just gonna we're gonna toss it around for a few minutes and try to achieve that here, okay? And so once our onion is translucent and our bell pepper is softened up a little bit. We just don't want it to be so, so raw. We want it to soften up, cook it a little bit. We can or we cannot add, these are slivered serrano peppers, okay? They can be very spicy. Sometimes they're mild, sometimes they're spicy. So if you want it spicy, this is when you add your chili. If you don't want it spicy, you leave it out. And I'm just gonna add a little bit, okay? We're not gonna add a whole lot because the other day, one of my boys was cooking something and the whole house, you couldn't walk in the house without coughing and sneezing because he cooked some jalapenos. And oh my gosh, they were very spicy. And well, we were coughing and sneezing for half of the day. And it just so happened to be my day off, so I was home. Anyway, okay, so here we are. This is getting nice and pretty. I'm just tossing it back and forth. And it's gorgeous. Okay, so in the meantime, I've got some other ingredients here that I'm gonna add to our tomato mixture once we add the tomato to this. We've got salt, pepper, and some garlic powder, and a little bit of cumin, a little comino, but very, very little. If that's an ingredient that maybe you don't like, or maybe your mom or grandmother or your dad or whoever the cook is in your family, if they don't like it, you don't have to add it. It's personal preference. That's something that reminded me of something I wanted to share with y'all. So remember when I was telling you that it took 3 years to write our cookbook because we didn't have anything written down? I encourage you to ask the cook in your family, whoever that may be, if there's a great recipe that they make, write it down or video them, do a video and keep that so that you know exactly how to make this recipe. One day when they're gone, I'm so grateful that I have this recipe book and that I got to spend 3 years doing this experiment, this experience with my mother. My mother left us 12 years ago and she was murdered by her 18-year-old next door neighbor. And I was the first one at the house once I got the phone call that something was going on. And after I was told what had happened, I remember standing in front of my mother's house with a lot of friends and family and neighbors, and my ear started to hurt. And my ear was hurting me, and there was so much going on. I was just trying to figure things out, right? But I kept feeling my ear and my ear and my ear. And it was when I finally paid attention to my ear that I realized I could hear my mother telling me, no, hang on, technical difficulties? No, we're good, right? Okay. No te enojes. She was telling me in my ear, don't get mad. Perdónalo. Forgive him, because he didn't know what he was doing. No hagas coraje. Don't become enraged. No guardes rencor. Don't hold a grudge. La venganza es de Dios. Vengeance is of the Lord. And that's why I'm telling you, girls, it's so important to follow that. Vengeance, that's God's. Don't worry about it. He'll take care of them. Just be good, be kind, be sweet, be faithful, be very faithful. Okay, so our tomato, is going in. Our onions and our bell pepper and our chiles serranos are there. I'm going to add my tomato. And now I season. You season with salt, a little bit of pepper, or a lot, whatever, however much you want. I've got a little bit of garlic powder, and just a pinch of cumin, just a little bit. My mom wasn't a big fan of comino, so we really don't use it a whole lot, but a couple of recipes do require it, and we use it, but very sparingly, okay? So what do we want to do here? We want, again, this is on medium heat, very simple. We are going to let this simmer. What does that mean? Well, We want it to come to a boil, okay? But you want to do it on medium heat. You don't want it to be on high heat because then you're going to burn it, you're going to dry it out. So we're just going to leave it alone and let it do its thing, okay? I actually have some already ready right here. Okay. You know, I told y'all that I showed you that we did this, we did this in the blender with the tomatoes. Well, if you go away to school or if you move out or maybe you're on a vacation but you're cooking and you don't have a blender, it's okay. Use your resources. This is a box grater. You can buy them at the grocery store, at the dollar store, or at the fancy kitchen store. You cut your tomato in half and you grate your tomato. You don't have a blender? That's okay. You've got this. And you put your tomatoes on a plate or in a bowl, and you're going to grab your tomatoes. I don't have a whole one, but I'll show y'all real quick. You're just going to grate like this, okay? And it's going to leave you with a wonderful, 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 chunky, the consistency of it is a very rustic consistency, but I love it. So you take it down till you get to the skins, okay? But you have to be very careful because you can cut your little knuckles here. Just be careful with that. Okay, let me bring a couple more and show y'all how easy this is. Doesn't matter, you don't have to have a blender. You've got this. This is great because you can grate cheese on this, you can grate tomatoes, you can, whatever you need to do, whatever you want to do, okay? And if you notice, the consistency is a little bit thicker than what I have here, but it's going to make for a wonderful sauce. So I'm just going to stir this up a little bit. You know, another way you can make this salsa spicy without adding the chilies in here is to add a whole chili that hasn't been chopped up. You could just add a whole serrano in there, and this way it would be mild for whoever wants the mild salsa, and then whoever wants the spiciness serves themselves that chili. That chili will cook down in here. Oh my gosh, that's what we fight over. It's really, really good like that. So we're going to continue with that. All right, I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way so that I can show you the recipe that we're doing here is for the enchiladas rancheras. But there's so much we can do with this salsa that I've got a couple of things I'm going to grab real quick. So I'll be right back just to get my, okay, I'm right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, they brought me water so I can refill my glass. Like I say, you can have all the practice in the world and still mess up, but that's okay. That's when you learn. You do what you're supposed to be doing. Sometimes we mess up, it's okay. We just have to get right back on path. Okay, so I have got my corn tortillas that have been softened up to make these enchiladas. Okay, and I've got some shredded chicken. So when you take corn tortillas out of a package, they're going to be hard. And I'm going to lower this just a little bit. And you have to soften them up. Well, how do you soften them up? You take your corn tortillas. This is one way. You can heat a skillet up with a little bit of oil, and using a pair of tongs, you put them in. You put the tortilla in one at a time, and then you take it out, the hot oil. You want them to soften up. You can't leave them in too long because if you do, they're going to turn into chips. So I've got quite a few here. I'm going to use my platter that I have here. I have some shredded chicken. So you can boil your chicken, you can roast your chicken, you can have a rotisserie chicken that you take all the chicken off and use that to fill these enchiladas with. But guess what we did to our little chicken that was just we boiled it. We took some of our salsa and we added it to our chicken, and look how delicious that is. Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to take my chicken. This is why I wear gloves. And I'm going to put it in the middle of my tortillas that have been softened up. And we're going to roll them up. And we're going to place them seam side down. So if I place them like this, it's gonna unwrap. So we place seam side down on our platter. And so we're going to just continue to do this. Now, I'm gonna tell you that you don't wanna do this too early in advance when you're making these. You really wanna make them right as soon as you're gonna eat them, because the moisture in the tortilla may cause it to rip. And so it just won't look pretty. It'll still taste good, but I'm just giving you a little hint, a little heads up. The moisture in the tortilla can tear it, and you want a pretty presentation, so now there are different thicknesses of corn tortillas at the grocery store. And you know, if you want to do these with flour, you can. We do have customers that request that, and we do aim to please, so we'll do whatever they ask us to if we can. But the different thicknesses of the corn tortilla, it's really personal preference, okay? So that's up to y'all. But you still have to soften them all up. Now some people say, well, I really don't want to dip them in hot oil. Is there another way that I can soften these up? There is. You can take your corn tortillas and you can run them through water and then heat up a nonstick skillet. Just heat it up on medium, get it nice and hot, and you can steam your tortillas that way. I'm just gonna put that right over the tomato that I grated because it'll just give extra flavor on the bottom. So if you had if you didn't have the blender and you grated your tomatoes, then you would take your grated tomatoes and put that in there. Okie dokie. So we'll finish the platter up like this. Do one more. But you know, adding this chicken, the sauce to the chicken just makes it even juicier. It's so delicious. Okay. Oops. All right, so now we've got our sauce ready. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take our sauce. Actually, that one's still cooking, so let me show you what it's going to look like once we've cooked it down. So delicious, so red, so rich. So yummy. I wish y'all were here. Wouldn't that be fun? Have y'all all here eating delicious enchiladas rancheras. But we make lots of different enchiladas, so whatever your favorite is, we'll make them. So here we go. We're gonna top this off with some queso fresco. This is a crumbly Mexican cheese. It doesn't melt, but it's really tasty. In fact, some people prefer that these enchiladas be filled with the cheese instead of chicken. And again, that's just personal preference. But you know what? I've got this sauce, and let me tell you, there are so many things we can do with it. Here we have some grilled chicken breast. This is great on your grilled chicken breasts. I've got some pork chops. My boys love it. Our boys love these pork chops with the tomato sauce, the salsita ranchera. I have some scrambled eggs. This sauce with scrambled eggs, oh my goodness gracious. It's so good. This is a very versatile recipe. There's so much you can do to it. Like I said to y'all earlier, the more you practice in the kitchen, the better you're gonna be. The more you practice kindness, the nicer you're gonna be. The happier you're gonna be. You just gotta practice all of these things. I was gonna tell y'all one other thing. My mother used to always tell me this. She used to say, no te cuesta un centavo ser feliz. It doesn't cost you 1 penny to be happy. You just have to make that choice. It's up to you to make that choice to be happy. And it doesn't cost anything. So that's the rules that I live by, because it makes the biggest difference in the world. Practice it. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. You're gonna feel so much better. It's, you know, be kind to each other, be kind to one another, love on each other, be forgiving with each other. All of these things, believe in each other. This is so important. You have to practice all of this. Like Tiger Woods. He's a great golfer, right? Well, he didn't become great just because he was great. He became great because he practiced. Same with the volleyball and the basketball and the cheerleading. All of that stuff. It all takes practice. And so I encourage you girls to do that. And I also want to challenge y'all. I have a challenge. How can you show your faith to others in your life? How can you do that? Think about this. Let's see. Like when I'm about to go and do something, for instance, today, or whenever I'm going to be on a TV show or whatever I'm going to do, I always ask for God's favor to be with me. It's not me. It's not about me. It's about Him. Give all the glory to God. Give Him the thanksgiving. And when you pray, ask Him specifically for what your needs are. Ask Him for God's favor. Ask God for His favor on whatever it is you're doing, any decision you have to make. Something you might be a little nervous about. You know what? Start praying. Those nerves will just go right away. Let Him in. Let Him in. It's something that I live my life by every single day. And I'm glad that I was at Incarnate Word and I had that foundation, because it's important. You know, one thing I haven't mentioned to you are my friends. My dearest friends, my son's godmothers are all girls that I met freshman year at Incarnate Word High School. I talk to them almost daily. Now our lives are a little bit busier, so maybe we don't get to see each other every day, but we still celebrate together, we laugh together, we cry together, we celebrate the great things, we celebrate the not so great things, but that's one thing I can count on are those girls. They are there and have been there with me, for me, through thick and thin, and I for them. So I hope that you have made some of those great friendships and relationships. And I invite you all to come in and say hi to me here at Los Barrios. I'm usually here at night. I do have a crazy schedule with 4 restaurants. I really never know where I'm going to be, but I like being here at the Blanco location because this to me is my home. This is where I grew up. So I'm not sure if we have what kind of time we are on, but I can talk forever and ever, girl. So we can continue the talk later. Are we done?
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. You know, you have just cooked a feast for us. But more than that, you have fed us and our soul at the Girls of Incarnate Word. And we are so thankful to you.
Well, thank you.
You know, you talked about being a team member. You talked about friends. You talked about family. And only you could do all of this in this amount of time because your heart is so big.
Oh, well, thank
and,
you.
And we honor your mom and your sister and your brother and your husband who is here with us in the background. We couldn't do this without you.
Well, it's my pleasure. And like I told you when you asked me, I don't know how I can do all of this and talk. And so if I was a little,
You did it.
you know,
You were
if I went back and forth, I apologize for that.
I'm going to step behind you because we have an award for you. Oh,
But,
we have
oh my gosh,
this award. It's the
Beautiful.
Woman of the Word.
that is so beautiful.
It is created by Jeannie Garcia.
Yes, who was a
Also-
year younger than me at Incarnate Word. I know her very well.
A shamrock.
Yes, this is
and
beautiful.
She created it for you,
Oh.
and she wanted you to have this.
Thank
we
you.
want you to have this.
Thank y'all so much. I will treasure this forever and ever.
You have given us your bountiful heart, and we want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank y'all for allowing me to come in and do this with y'all. And like I said, welcome to our homes. Our restaurants are like our homes. They're our dining rooms. And you know what? One last thing. Be the light of the world. There's so much darkness out there. Be the light of the world. That's so important. So come see me.
Thank you. We will definitely.
Have I made
see
you hungry? Come see me.
Mil gracias.
De nada.
Muchas gracias.
Con mucho gusto.
Y te agradecemos en el alma.
Ay, fue mi
Gracias.
placer. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Ladies,
Have a great day, girls.
have a beautiful day.
Go Shamrocks. Mighty Shamrock.